basically, the whole story starts in 1840. And an Illinois horse farmer by the name of John Hoxsey found a malignant tumor on the right hock of his favorite horse, and he didn't want to shoot the animal, so he put him out to pasture to die. And within 3 weeks, the tumor had stabilized, and he noticed the horse was eating some kind of plants in the corner of the pasture that weren't part of his normal diet. And if you've been around animals, they are marvelously instinctive about what to do. Within 3 months, the tumor had dried up, and it was actually separating from the healthy tissue. And so he thought the weeds were interesting, and he started adding various home remedies, and he ended up developing 3 formulas. One was an internal tonic, and the others were 2 topical preparations, which I'll tell you more about later. And then he started treating animals with cancer. So the Hoxsey therapy, the topical stuff, is categorized as escharotics, which is caustic substances that burn tissue and kill cells. It's an old form of folk medicine that has a long history of use in both veterinary and human medicine. And we'll come back to this toward the end, that what Hoxsey did, if you put it into the context of healthcare of the day, Native American medicine was popular and that sort of thing. He wasn't as wild as some people represented him to be. The external remedies were red paste and yellow powder. Red paste eats anything it touches. It's intensely painful, but it is more effective than surgery for many types of cancer, and contains several ingredients, including bloodroot, which had been used by the Native Americans to treat external cancers for centuries. The yellow powder reportedly kills only malignant cells, which then separate and slough off. And one of his chief nurse, Hoxsey's chief nurse, said it was like a pit separating a pit from a peach, like you could literally just lift it out. The tonic was a dark brown liquid, tastes a little bit like root beer, contains potassium iodide and herbs, and at the end I'll give you just a brief overview of the value of the particular ingredients. And there's different versions of this available, and I'll go into some of the difficulties with the formula later. He also prescribed a strict diet with fruits and vegetables and an additional ingredient needed for recovery. He firmly believed that people had to want to live, and he believed in the psychology of the cancer patient who survives. So what people who hate Hoxsey and really have maligned him said is he exploited cancer patients for money. But when I looked into this, he was charging about $1,500, and some patients were only paying like $5 a month, and he wouldn't turn anybody away. A producer of a film about Hoxsey that I watched and got a lot of ideas about what to track down visited the clinic in the 1980s, and by then they were charging $3,500 and then costs of tests if necessary, like biopsies. But the patients never were denied treatment regardless of their financial situation, and some of them were paying ridiculously low amounts per month. So I didn't get any greed out of this whatsoever, and I intensely looked for it because that allegation had been made so many times. Now, to be fair, you have to look at some people are their own worst enemy. And it was easy to portray Hoxsey as a quack. He looked and he acted like the proverbial snake oil salesman. He was fast talking. He sounded like a carnival barker. People close to him said he really had a deep belief in his remedies and he wanted to help people. Critics, like the journalists and government employees portrayed him as a quack. His own son said his dad was 80-20. 80% of what he said was accurate, but he just couldn't resist the 20% embellishment, and that got him in trouble every time. And all of his children said he made bad choices in business partners, but he didn't have a lot of choices because of what was done to him over a period of time. So Harry Hoxsey himself was born in 1901. His father was a veterinarian who had inherited the grandfather's treatments. John became known for treating animals with cancer. He took care of sick horses for the Ringling brothers, and the family eventually moved to Girard, Illinois, and they started treating cancer patients under the direction of 2 medical doctors. Harry got interested when he saw a prominent local citizen, John Fromme, recover from terminal cancer, and he decided at that moment he was going to go to medical school. The cancer practice grew. John gave his veterinary practice to an assistant, and he started working on humans, and no patients were turned away, even if they couldn't pay. So things changed a little bit. John C. fell and broke his nose. His health declined. The family farm was sold. Harry had to go to work in the coal mines to support the family. He drove a taxi. He sold insurance. He played semi-professional baseball for 3 teams. He boxed and wrestled for cash. But before John C. died, he gave the formulas to Harry. Harry completed his high school diploma via correspondence, took a mail order course in forensic medicine, and saved for medical school. The local people knew that he had his dad's tonic and salves, but he refused to offer them because he didn't want anything to interfere with going to medical school. That was his dream. That was all put aside when a wealthy citizen begged him for treatment. The lower mouth and chin were disfigured with cancer. Hoxsey agreed to do it secretly, but when the guy returned, he brought a friend, and then the two returned with a third man, and now Hoxsey was in business, so he quit his jobs and he started treating cancer patients. The two out of the three original patients were pretty well known, and they started giving testimonials. So Hoxsey had actually saved enough money to go to medical school, but the thing that stopped him was this guy by the name of Dr. Maximilian Meinhardt, who was a physician with a Chicago sanatorium. He talked him out of it and invited Hoxsey to treat test cases at his facility. Well, through Meinhardt, Hoxsey met Dr. Bruce Miller, a medical doctor who thoroughly investigated it, said that there was something to his remedies, warned Hoxsey that organized medicine would come after him. And in fact, doctors had already started complaining to the Illinois Medical Board, which by this point in time made it impossible for Hoxsey to go to medical school. So he actually had the right intention to become a legitimate doctor, but fate took him in a different direction. So Miller proposed, how about we go into business together, my medical license, your remedies, and an agreement was reached that agreement would not require Hoxsey to disclose the formulas. He was very reluctant, and understandably so, to tell people what his formulas were. And by the end, I'll show you one of the reasons he had legitimate reasons to be concerned. So they opened their first clinic in 1924. Well, a demonstration was arranged, and this is when the beginning of the huge trouble began. Dr. Malcolm Harris, who was chief surgeon at a Chicago hospital and also secretary of the American Medical Association, Harris took Hoxsey to a terminal cancer patient by the name of Tom Mannix. He had a severe epithelioma 4 inches across the shoulder. He'd been treated with surgery, burned with radiation, and told he had 4 weeks to live. He was treated with the Hoxsey treatment. And the thing that's really important to understand about this is that all of this happened at a respected hospital with lots and lots of witnesses. So in 4 weeks, the mass was ready to remove. And this excision was done in front of a very large group of physicians and students, including Dr. Morris Fishbein, who was at the time editor of the Journal of the American Medical Association. Pictures were taken of the patient before and after. The AMA archives still have them. And there's a book called When Healing Becomes a Crime about the Hoxsey phenomenon, and the pictures are actually in that book. I saw them, I have that book.